Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, a lot of printing problem. For fail-safe you need at least 2 single points of failure. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. A lot of printing problem. I was the manager of several departments, but not initially of IT in a company of about 100 people. I was the most computer competent manager, so IT was transferred to me after the previous manager convinced all of the staff to leave. Story for another day. This meant I had to hire new staff with almost no budget, and had to do some IT myself, but IT was not my focus, which is how this problem wasn't solved earlier. We had a large printer that had all the latest bells and whistles, and could spit out reams of paper very quickly. We also had a technology-challenged HR person, whom I also have a few stories on, that was hired and reported directly by the CEO for unexplained reasons and often worked late. This concludes the background and players. I am often the first person to arrive in the morning, and on this printer I find 100+ pages of a resume left behind. Resumes contain personal information, so I pitched them into the locked shredding box, no thinking required. Later in the week I meet with the CEO, and he was also in early, and he fumes at me saying the HR person left employee salary information on the printer, just venting, not my problem, so I pay it little heed, but I see a 5 cm stack of paper that the CEO was pointing at. Now I hear on the grapevine that engineers have found stacks of resumes abandoned on the printer several times and had to toss them into shredding. There is a pattern, but I am too distracted to see it, until I see it. I walk up to the printer just churning away, and the HR person trying to cancel a print job. Another salary calculation page that is highly confidential. He tells me that this printer keeps printing multiple copies when he only wants one. He leaves with a stack of paper, and I almost forget about it. That day I meet with the HR person and the CEO. We discuss HR items, and then at the end of the meeting the CEO warns the HR person about leaving confidential paper on the printer, as he did it again, and it could cost him his job. HR person says he only uses the secure print feature. Now that I see this as a serious issue, I actually think about it and see the pattern. I never used this feature, so I tried it, see how it behaved. I used secure print and walked to the printer. Button - secure print. Enter user - funktime 1. Select print job - OK. Enter action - color print B/W print advanced B/W print. Number of copies - default 1 number - OK, which uses the default. Enter password - XXXX. Printer prints my 1-page document once. I think I am smart and walk back to my desk. Remote into the printer and pull the logs. Sort by user. 30 print jobs of 183 copies by HR. Some cancelled, but many show as completed. Max entry into number of copies was 3 digits. I walk into the HR office and asked him if his password starts with 183. Yes, and he says he usually has to enter his password twice before it will start printing. Give a printing lesson, so he stops entering his password into the number of copies field. I was thankful his password started with a 1, not a 9. If there was a full-time IT person on job, it would have been sorted out earlier, or not, as I was privy to some of the confidential information. For fail-safe you need at least 2 single points of failure. Sorry for the long introduction. Some background: the tale takes place on a semi-academic site with some centralized IT services, ISP, mail, the basic DNS, and backbone network. The rest is managed by the institutes housed on the campus. You can buy in everything: domain, server housing, storage, etc. from our central IT, but it is not cheap. Also, if you use their equipment, you have to play by their rules. We have ca 100 users. I am responsible for nearly everything in our institute when it comes to the infrastructure. I am basically a janitor with an engineering degree and a bit too much knowledge about IT, construction, building infrastructure, and our software we use. However, the IT should be managed by someone else. Let's call him Uncle Dagobert. Uncle Dagobert has a healthy aversion against investing some money in our infrastructure or the IT. He is also our CFO acting. And he doesn't like the rules from the IT department. Most of our work consists of field simulations of various RF components and working with AI for pattern recognition and so on, so the car can tell if it is about to hit a pedestrian, another car, or a lamp post. The standard issue gear consists of Core i5 PCS with onboard graphic cards. We have CA10 servers for heavy workloads, but because they needed to be cheap, so a server is normally something like a Xeon with 8 cores at 3 GHz and one lonely mid-grade NVIDIA gaming graphics card. Uncle Dagobert doesn't want to hear the constant whining of the users, so if there is a problem with the PCS he normally gives me the order to fix it. That way he is not bothered with the standard problems like a broken monitor, or that someone wiped his hard drive when he wanted to format an USB stick. Yes, every user has admin rights on his or her boxes, because Uncle Dagobert also can't be bothered with installing software and he is the boss of the IT. Also, the users normally come to me because they know the reactions. If there is a more serious problem, I give him a ticket with the issue and what needs to be done. For example, if the NiFi new AI software doesn't want to use the graphics card on the user's box and the CPU is working to its lonely and hot death. Solution: buy and install a compatible graphics card, because onboard Intel graphics does not go well with NVIDIA CUDA. Or buy time on one of the clusters. The typical answer to my tickets is, we don't need that, because it works since 10 years that way and the users just need to simplify their work. Use the servers, yeah right. Because a €50 card will help with analyzing some 100 G of LiDAR data. All the servers are housed in a server room, which is a co-location space. It was an unused space in the basement of another building. I had planned the structure of the room to make it a decent server closet, but most of my plans got rejected because it cost too much. In retrospect, perhaps we could have opted out on the fire suppression system because data centers don't burn, right? But at least 2 independent power supply legs, redundant uplink to the backbone net, and UPS with generator backup and redundant cooling would be nice to have. I covered my back with some paper and moved on, because Uncle Dagobert told me that the servers are his domain. Yes, boss man. About 2 years later, I come to work at 7. Enough time to do all the administrative work and start the important projects before the first users come to work at 9. I found 2 mails from our workshop crew that they can't access their shared network drives and the internet. Okay, perhaps just a defective network card. We'll look into it later. Not shortly after the first call, the internet is down. Strange. I have access. Both users are on the same switch. And so am I. So I go to the user's PC and make some tests. DNS not found. Wait. It is not the standard DNS, but an IP from our network. Reset the DNS to the standard. Internet is working again. User is happy. I go back and run some tests. It looks like all of our servers have vanished. And that's a problem because nearly everything runs through them. Licenses, printing services, the whole Active Directory, the user's data, and for some reason since yesterday most of the DNS queries. Luckily mail is centralized, so no problem there. Also all my data is hosted at the central IT, because I like my data backed up and ready to. I really hate redoing engineering work because of data loss. So I write a ticket for Uncle Dagobert that there is a problem with the server room, and that he needs to come in, because it is not my domain. Some users become unhappy because they can't work, aka surf in the net while waiting for results, so I write a mail to all that we have a problem with our servers and I can't say how long the outage will be. 8 o'clock. Uncle Dagobert, UD, arrived. And he is not happy, because he didn't plan to come in this day. And he is sure that I made a mistake. $UD, the system had worked for years. It is fail-safe, because if something failed the monitoring system would have told me. $Me, the monitoring system was one of the first victims. It died with the server it was housed on. All our servers are dead. I checked it. And I want to have the day off because I could not work. The licenses for our simulation tools. $UD, but you maintain the electric systems and the network. $Me, yes, but the problem are the servers and the server room. It is not my responsibility. Our boss told me in writing that it is your responsibility because you wanted it that way. Have fun. In the end I helped him, because a failed 20 kVA UPS is something you should know what you do. Well, it was not just the UPS which committed suicide, but the failing cooling system assisted it. The outage lasted over 1 day. $UD was mad, because his fail-safe system had failed. We did a post-mortem single point of failure analysis of the setup. All of our services were bundled on one flimsy server, which was virtualized into 5 to 8 servers. The experimental DNS, DHCP, Active Directory, license servers, printing server, the user data. The host server's drive consisted of roughly 10 drives in one RAID. There is a backup on a tape library which overwrites a LTO7 tape over and over. There was no mirror server which could switch over. Single uplink to one top of the rack switch. The top of the rack switch was linked to another 10G fiber switch, which has just one 10G fiber uplink to the backbone. The original plan required a 2x12 fiber patch panel setup directly linked to the backbone net of the campus, and at least redundant uplinks, but costs. The AC was not a redundant precision cooling system, but just some domestic cold water radiator with fans. The redundant power distribution with one UPS and one generator leg was just a cable, which ended in the dying UPS. The manual bypass was never installed, so the UPS could not safely be bypassed without cutting power. Also, the UPS was housed in the same room, because UPS like it cool, and who needs an additional AC if we could just use that one? And even if we had 2 independent power sources, it would not have helped at all, because all our servers and the main switch had just one power supply. But hell, who could afford €200 for the second power supply? We are on budget. Better cut off 100 expensive people from their data and ability to work for 1 day. And the kicker, physical security of the racks was top-notch. No one bothered to change the locks from the standard Riddle 3524 key. Now everything is fine. The UPS got a manual bypass, and the monitoring system is mirrored on another server in another room with all the really important services like DHCP and DNS. This time no costs were cut, and a little Raspberry Pi blinks happily in $UD's office and tells him that the system works. The rest of it? Well, that is all way too expensive because we have the monitoring system. Also, we eliminated 2 single points of failure, so the system is fail-safe, right?